Hello, everyone. I'm Lisa Blaylock, one of the associate pastors at University United Methodist Church. Thank you for joining us tonight for our Fireside Chat, although we are not needing a fire anytime soon. I have a very special guest with me tonight. I have Dr. Tom Caven here with me. Dr. Tom is a graduate of University of Texas, and he did his medical education at UT Medical School in San Antonio. Dr. Caven was a founding member of Travis Physicians Associates in 1994, which later became Seton Health Partners in 1998. He spent a number of years in private practice. Beginning in 2018, Dr. Caven served as medical director of Seton Health Alliance. Dr. Caven was the chief medical officer and medical director at Brackenridge Hospital. He later was the inaugural chief medical officer at Dell Seton Medical Center at UT. He is a clinical assistant professor of medical education at Dell Medical School, UT Austin. Tom is a member of University United Methodist Church and attends the Odyssey Sunday School class.
True.
Dr. Tom led our task force determining how and when we begin returning to our building using medical data and metrics rather than a specific date on the calendar. Welcome, Tom. We're glad you're here tonight.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm glad to be here with you.
A little bit of history. When we all went home after the COVID-19 started becoming prominent in our area, we decided that as a church, we needed to be thoughtful about what it looks like returning to our buildings and returning into worship. And we put together a task force of very thoughtful people to look at that and what it looks like and how it will look in the future when we do get to return. You agreed to chair that committee, and we are so grateful for the work that you did. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. I think we all really recognized the need to really plan very thoughtfully about how we would reopen and what reopening would look like. Um, we initially started with a group of people, and I just want to mention everybody besides you, Lisa, and Pastor Elford. Um, we had a great team. Paige Barnett, really knowledgeable leader woman. Clyde Bennett, who's been, just so involved with the church and has a lot of history and very organized. Cindy Reeves was another great member of it. Kelly Gorin Fulton, who Kelly and I kind of go way back into a prior life. We were actually in an oldies band together at a previous church for a while. Jane Capron, who's part of the Odyssey, but it was great to be able to work with her. Carla Wade, who I used to work with at Ascension, and then Andrew Keever, who was really, is always, very good, wise counsel on matters of all sorts, and certainly this one as well. We were primarily looking at four things to try to decide when and how we would reopen. We wanted to know really how people were feeling. Were they feeling like there was a spiritual void in their lives because of this pandemic? Were they feeling economically stressed by the pandemic, as so many people are? Were they psychologically having a hard time with this pandemic? Was it something they really felt like they needed to get back to church just for their psychology? And then finally, we wanted to look at the healthcare issues. And the healthcare issues were then and still are fairly clearly pointing to needing to stay isolated and distanced. But we really wanted to balance that against these other factors of spiritual, psychological, economic. And fortunately, we were able to find out that the church is not suffering so far, not suffering financially. We were finding that people, by and large, seem to be getting well fed spiritually as well by the current online format, which I think was really very reassuring and heartwarming to all of us. And we felt like the psychology is a tough one for so many of us. But we felt like once you really factored in the way we'd have to reopen now, most people were feeling like they're getting, uh, what they need under the current format, at least better than reopening with, you know, very, very stringent precautions.
Thank you. As part of the work that we did together, we did a survey. I think you were talking about the results of that survey. Um, can you mention do you remember off the top of your head what percentage of people felt comfortable with where we are right now?
It was very high. Uh, there were less, well, let me back up. I fully expected the survey to show that there was a fairly significant contingent of people that felt like we got to get back to church. And we've all seen there are churches like that where people said, you know what, we just need to be together. And I really expected we would find a lot of people like that. Maybe people with young families where their kids needed to see other kids, or I didn't know who they were, but I really I wanted to have everybody have a voice and say what they felt like. And I remember seeing, it was like 3% of people that felt like, we need to be back in church right now.
Mhm.
We were actually seeing more people that said, I don't know, I'll ever be comfortable coming back. And I hope that really doesn't prove to be true. I think there's a good chance that there's something that comes along that's a game changer here and changes the whole perspective on this virus. But it was really a very high percentage,
Mhm.
uh, you know, well in the 80-90% range of people that felt like this is working for them. Uh, this is working a lot better than trying to get together and risking it. And they still feel like a church with what we're doing now. It's great news to all of us.
Yeah. So for those of you at home, the survey results and the work of the task force is available on our website. You should have received an email with it, but if not, you can go to our website and see the 4-phase planning that we did, and the survey results, and what it looks like a little bit when we do get to come back together. Um, One of the things that we did as a task force was decided not to look at calendar dates for return, but to look at metrics of what's happening in our community with the virus and what our numbers are. One of the numbers that we talked about is the hospitalization number. Can you talk to a little bit and explain what a rolling number is, and explain what we are seeing now in hospitalizations in Travis County?
Sure, Lisa. The rolling number is basically like looking back at the last 7 days. And so every day as you move forward, you move up a day from the back end. So, we're looking at, the last basically full week and taking an average of the number of new hospitalizations each day. We had some discussion about whether we would look at uh, total people in the hospital or whether we look at total new hospitalizations. Um, I kind of favored looking at total people in the hospital. That number is not quite as readily available. So we all decided, and I agreed to this, that we would really use number of new hospitalizations as a metric, because that's what the Travis County, Austin Public Health, Dr. Escott, is reporting on their website daily. And they've got 5 stages. And when you go up to stage 5, it's basically going back to a complete lockdown. Stage 5 starts when the rolling 7-day average of new hospitalizations is, I believe, 70. And right now we're in the low 60s. So we're not far from it. I'm just looking to make sure that I'm right about that. Yep. We're not far from it, but we have taken pretty stringent measures again, and requiring masking, and really reissued the Mayor Adler has reissued the stay-at-home directives. So we've taken steps in the last week or so to try to bend the curve back down. And I think Mayor Adler was on CNN yesterday, really saying that we're really kind of on the edge of our seats, seeing whether we've blunted the trajectory of new cases, because it had been increasing very rapidly.
Mhm.
Everybody, all the epidemiologists that I've seen, not just here locally, but nationally, feels like there's clear indications that the reopenings that occurred around Memorial Day, most especially reopenings around bars, um, because bars, people are crowded together. They're not typically masking, they're drinking, so they're not really thinking as closely about distancing. There's frequently loud music. People are speaking very loudly, which kind of approaches coughing in terms of ability to spread the germ, the virus. Um, so clearly, um, the um, the bars made a big difference. A lot of people feel like that the all the Black Lives Matter protest may have been a factor. Interestingly, all the epidemiologists that I've read are stating pretty unanimously that they're not seeing evidence of that. Part of the reason they believe that there is some masking, not universal, but some masking at those protests. Probably the biggest thing is that people were outdoors the whole time. So even if you came in contact with one or multiple people that had the virus, you weren't really close to them for long periods of time, and you're out in an environment where if the wind's blowing at all, it would dissipate the virus. So for a variety of reasons, and nobody knew this would be the case, but it does appear that the protests were not a huge factor in driving this resurgence of the virus.
So I think we've already covered this, but I'll ask anyway, because I think it might be on people's minds. Do you see us returning back to worship in the sanctuary anytime soon?
Well, I really don't, Lisa. I mean, we had we set up a phased reopening plan, and this is probably also on the UUMC website. And basically, to get to phase 4, which is where we're opening stuff up, we would have to be really kind of moving back to close to stage 1 uh, of the Travis County of Austin Public Health recommendations. We're a long way away from that, and the numbers are going the wrong direction. Um, with that said, at this point, really all we have to battle this virus is public health measures: social distancing, hand washing, using hand gel, masking, avoidance of crowds, staying home, all that kind of stuff, which we've seen before worked, and we have every reason to expect and certainly hope that it works this time. Um, it's kind of ironically pretty much the same set of factors that were effective in the 1918-1919 pandemic. We're kind of back to trying to defeat a disease that we have no specific treatment for.
Mhm.
With that said, though, I've been attending regularly. I've also got affiliate faculty position at the Dell Medical School. I've been attending every week. Uh, they have a town hall between Travis County Medical Society and Dell Medical School. They have different speakers come in. It's always been about coronavirus. This past week, it was 3 speakers who were intimately involved in the day-to-day treatment of COVID patients, speaking about current treatments. And there is definitely some reason for optimism around 3 drugs. Remdesivir, which is really only for the sickest patients, a viral agent that was developed for Ebola. It didn't work well for Ebola, but does have some application for coronavirus. Um, the second one being this hyperimmune plasma, or the convalescent plasma, um, that basically you get a transfusion from somebody that's already had the disease and has antibodies. Both of those are for people that are pretty sick in the hospital, as is the third one, and that's Decadron. Decadron's interesting because it's a steroid. It's like cortisone. It's been around decades. I've used it since my earliest days of residency. Um, and what's interesting about that is nobody really knew much about whether that had any role or not until a study got completed and published out of Oxford in England, where they've been looking seriously at it in a well-controlled randomized trial, and found it was effective in improving the outcome of this disease. And the reason that's interesting, it's interesting just to have any treatments that work, but it's particularly interesting because this was a drug that really wasn't on anybody's radar screen except for this group that was studying it. And until they were able to publish their results showing a very positive outcome, um, nobody had any idea that Decadron was effective. Um, and that's important because at this town hall last week, they showed a list of, it looked to be 30 drugs that are mostly drugs that are currently available, that are out, that are FDA approved. They have some other indication. In other words, people are using them for some other other condition. Um, but people are studying these, and so I think it's very possible that one of these drugs winds up showing very promising results in a trial somewhere. Maybe at one university, University of Washington, um, and that study publishes its results, and all of a sudden, everyone now knows we've got a medication that's effective, or effective in a certain uh, subset of COVID patients. So I think that gives me some pause for hope, because I think that's a possibility that something emerges suddenly. There are other new drugs being worked on, and that they may be very effective as well. The timetable for getting those approved, manufactured, distributed, available to people is much slower. So the exciting thing is to find an existing drug that is effective. And there already are a couple of drugs. The death rate is much lower, particularly in Travis County. I mean, by my calculations, it's running, in about the 1% range. Part of that's because we're seeing younger people now, but it's nowhere near what it was in the early days of the epidemic in New York City.
That's definitely good news for Travis County. So you sound hopeful, Tom, and that makes me hopeful. What else? How else are you finding joy and peace, uh, and in this strange time that we live in?
It is a strange time. Well, yeah, I love music, and this has really been an opportunity to play more. I mean, the one thing about, I'm working from home like so many of you are doing, um, and I have found that actually pretty good. Um, it's great to have a short commute. It's great to be able to take frequent breaks during the day. Um, and I love being able just to kind of go pick up a guitar kind of in the middle of a Wednesday for a few minutes. I don't do that in my usual work life. Um, I'm keeping on an exercise regimen, and I ride my bike here in the neighborhood. Always see the same people out walking every time, and um, a lot of people blame that this virus came from bats or came from pangolins or something like that. I think people discount the fact that I think the dogs were behind it, because this has definitely benefited the dogs a lot. They're getting a lot more walks, at least my dog is, than she ever got before, getting out of the house on a daily basis. So, of course,
I,
I'm joking. I don't think the dogs had anything to do with this, but I do think I do think they're benefiting from it. So there are some silver linings to this thing, and yeah, I'm lucky enough. It's been a beautiful spring. Um, we've got a lot of greenery around our house, a lot of places to be. Um, our house is too big for the two of us, you know. We had an active household when the kids were here, but we've managed to kind of fill up every square inch of it. We got something going on everywhere. So there's a lot of places to be. You don't have to be underfoot too much between me and Marcia.
so I agree with you. My dogs are going to be very sad when I am not working from home anymore.
What's going on here?
Yeah.
What's going on here? What are you doing? What are you doing to kind of stay re-energized, Lisa?
Well, thank you for asking. I, like you, I'm taking walks in my neighborhood and spending time with the dogs, spending time with Jeff, spend time in the backyard and doing some projects around the house. Stay connected with people over Zoom and, the good old fashioned phone, picking up the phone and calling people.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference, doesn't it?
It really does. And doing very limited socially distant gatherings with friends that we feel are also being very careful. But that also gives me life. Um, Tom, thank you for giving us your experience and your expertise and your time, for leading us in this new way of being. We appreciate you so much. And I appreciated that you talked about using music as a way to soothe your soul in some sense. And I know that we talked about you maybe singing us out today. Are
I'd
you
love to.
up for that?
You know, the whole message I got from the survey really has been that even not being able to be together, people feel very strongly that we're a church and that we've got each other. And so this is sort of a song that trades on that. Everybody knows that old James Taylor. You can play the game, you can act out the part. No, it wasn't written for you. Tell me how you're gonna stand there with your broken heart. Shame of playing the fool. One thing leads to another. It doesn't take any sacrifice. Oh, father and mother, sister and brother. If it feels nice, don't think twice. Shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna work out fine if you only will. Shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna work out fine if you only will. You can run, but you cannot hide. This is widely known. How you gonna stand there with your foolish pride when you're all by yourself, all alone? Won't you tell somebody the way that you feel? You can feel it beginning to ease. I think it's true what they say about the sweetie we always getting the grief. Better to follow the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna work out fine if you only will. Say it again. Shower the people you love with. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna work out fine if you only will.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Good
you,
night,
Lisa.
everyone.
Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate you.
All right.